Hello, everyone. This is Jose Palomino with another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. And today's guest is Sky Cassidy of Mountaintop Data. And we're going to talk today about data, about how, as marketers, even in small and mid-sized companies, there's more opportunity to get quality data to actually expand and extend your marketing reach. And we're going to talk with Sky very candidly about what the rules are, what the laws are, what are some best practices. So listen closely. If you've ever wondered, how do we reach out to people? How do we find people to reach out to in ways that are legal, ethical, and effective? So listen in as Sky joins our show. Welcome, Sky, to the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be on, man.
Well, Sky, I'd like to just give kind of a framing comment for our audience. Like, who do you serve and what do you do for them?
So my company's Mountaintop Data. Basically, we provide business information for B2B sales and marketing. So data, it's a very generic term though, but business contact information, names, phone numbers, physical addresses for targeted companies and targeted decision makers within those companies, basically.
Wow, so that's an interesting. I think such an interesting model, and especially as the world is going into all different kind of forms of marketing, sales. I mean, the world's changed, obviously, not just the last 2 years, but it's been in this rapid process of change. And I know a lot of people may have dabbled in data. They may have licensed it in the past, and they didn't know what to do with it, or they tested it and they realized it wasn't that accurate. So what's the state of data today? And let's put it in this context. If you're not like a mega company, right? You're not GE, right, but you're like a $40 million OEM manufacturer that would like to expand into other markets. What's possible today with data that's out there? What's available?
Well, the good news is even small businesses can B2B. I'm talking about specifically because that's our data niche, but can access the data they need very inexpensively. So the brains you're talking about, really easy. You just have to have somebody who wants to go into it. One of the best channels marketers can do is their owned channel. And that's your physical mail, your email list, your newsletter subscribers, massively valuable. But purchase data, like what companies get from people like us, is also a very valuable portion of that. I'm wondering if I'm answering your question now.
Well, no, yeah. I mean, but I guess the question would be, is the quality of the data available? I know your firm deals with that. Is the quality, even, and I've talked to some business owners. Oh yeah, I bought a list, or I subscribed to a list. This was like 6-7 years ago, and it was like catch as catch can. It really wasn't very accurate and so on. So they feel they got burned.
Yeah, good data is better than it's ever been now. The problem is there's a lot more bad data out there. There's a ton of companies, listeners probably getting multiple emails a day from people. Hey, you want to buy this list? You want to buy that list? There's a ton of companies, both in the US and overseas, that just have garbage data, old data. They just have a chunks of data and they're trying to keep reselling them. They're not really data companies. They just have a handful of spreadsheets they got 10 years ago or whatever it is. And that data is going to be garbage. So unfortunately, in this industry, it's hard to tell the difference until you have it. I do have a couple ways people can tell, but so if people having bought bad data in the past, it's like saying I went to a restaurant, I got food poisoning, I'm never eating again. Like, you just have to be more selective about where you go, and kind of test the stuff out. So data is extremely valuable, but you want to be selective on your vendors. And I've actually developed a system I recommend for people for making sure they have valuable vendors, because, and we don't even say like, hey, come buy from us. No, you should have multiple options. Like, great thing is you don't have to be monogamous with your data. You can get it from many different places, and you should be easy enough to merge all this stuff, all this stuff together. So there are pretty simple things marketers can do. They're very familiar with lead attribution and saying, oh, great, we're getting sales or leads from this specific channel, from our Google AdWords. They know all that stuff. I preach to people to take it back to the data source. So of course, Google AdWords, that is, okay, that's back to the source. But when it comes to, we ran email campaigns or whatever it is, for the attribution, they should really be flagging their data in their system with the original source. What company did they get it from? So that when deals close, they can look back and say, oh, here's where this came from. And I know attribution gets muddy and they say, oh, you never quite, but it will help. It isn't a definitive. Maybe it came from multiple sources, something like that. But it really helps to know where's the information coming from. And if you're finding out the vast majority of the deals you're closing are coming from stuff your salespeople enter in manually from trade shows, then maybe that's your best data source is trade shows for your particular industry. But if you're finding out you have three, maybe some people have none, but let's say you have three data sources and all your sales or a large portion are coming from one data source, and you have one that you're getting nothing from, you say, oh, not only is that company not giving you value, they're probably hurting your marketing, because bad information can actually hurt your marketing, hurt your deliverability, waste time, waste energy. And you can say, let's cut that one out. So that's assuming you have multiple data vendors there. And then I have techniques I tell people for choosing data vendors too. It sounds like it sucks to talk to a data company.
Right.
But if it does, then you shouldn't talk to that one. That's it.
Okay. And you're saying there's a lot more, there are many more players in the market today than ever before, but you have to be more, it's like there could be a lot of restaurants, not all of which are, are Michelin rated. Some are just not.
Good thing is there's a handful of restaurants. There's a ton of street vendors right now. And those are all in the data world, terrible. There's a ton of people who set up a website and they scrape data live online. They call themselves a data company. They're a waste of your time. So really you have to find, I always say there's probably about a dozen data companies. There's actually fewer legitimate data companies now because they keep merging.
Okay.
But there's way more people selling data. Hard to tell the difference between the two. The legitimate data companies will talk to you. They'll send you a sample. They'll let you suppress stuff. They'll get you a count based on your criteria. The illegitimate ones won't even answer your emails. They'll keep sending you the same form email saying you're ready to buy, you're ready to buy, you're ready to buy. So
no,
I can get more into that if you want, but I don't want to.
No, I think that's fantastic. That's just good word to the wise. So let me take it from so in the market, there's maybe a slightly shrinking number of legitimate vendors. There's a lot of, as you call them, street vendors, so to speak, people selling less than good data, but there are enough choices available in good data that if somebody wanted to lean into, I need to get some external data sources, there are some real good options, which raises the second set of questions that come to mind, which is, what do I do with the data, right? So you hear, especially in the last 5 to 10 years, 7 years, all this stuff on, restrictions on email deliverability, on, canned spam and all these rules and $10,000 fines per wrong email or whatever, this, and some of this just anecdotal, people they decide to do nothing. So if I was running a small business, $5-10 million business and B2B, and I wanted to secure a quality list, what can I do with that practically that won't get me in trouble or won't get me, flamed out on, with people putting all sorts of comments on social that I'm a bad actor?
Yeah. So the main thing is you definitely want to stay away from that. You don't want to spam people. What's great now, and when the email marketing started out in business, it was very spammy because we didn't have much information. So it was just, here's a list, send it to all of them. Interested parties will respond, was literally the marketing pitch. Now we can segment down a lot more. So now we can really, the more relevant your message is to the target audience, when you have an HR software and you only email HR people within the very specific industries and company sizes that are likely to be interested, then you're going to create a lot less friction in the marketplace. So that's a great thing. The targeting that we can do now means you send less emails to more interested people. So you want to be careful. We have a PDF, like 10 keys to email marketing, basically says you need a domain just for your cold email marketing. You never use your corporate domain because things can always go wrong. That protects you. And then you need to use a platform that allows you to send cold emails. Can Spam Act you mentioned, it's called the Can Spam Act, not the Can't Spam Act. I don't like the word spam in there. That makes it kind of ugly, but basically it's saying here's the rules to abide by for cold marketing, because this is an own channel. Companies have to be able to reach out to companies they don't know and sell their products, or we don't have capitalism.
Right. Okay.
You can do door-to-door marketing. You can send physical mails. You can call people. You can email people in the US, not in Canada. Apparently they don't believe in capitalism. They got a little confused with their data privacy law up there and their email law, but we don't do much sales up there anyway, as far as American companies go. So in the US, you can cold email people, but you need to use a platform that allows that. We have a couple that we recommend to people, but you find a platform or you find a company that manages the email for you, and you get your cold email campaign set up. It's the only way to own the channel. And maybe the campaign is inviting people to your webinar. Maybe it's direct pitching your product. Maybe it's inviting them to opt into your newsletter, and then you do your stuff. Whatever the funnel is you create for your marketing, email is too large of an area to ignore as a company because it's scary or you don't understand
and
it.
that's exactly what I see happening. I see people just literally, they can't figure it out. I've read the Can't Spam Act as well. And I've tried, I'm saying, okay, I want to be on the right side of angels here, because it seems like to be on the wrong side can be very costly.
Yes, you do not want to.
Right. But as you pointed out, I mean, I can send somebody a postcard or a box for that matter. I can knock on their door. They can shoo me away, but I could do that. So email is the one area that I think people kind of either there's certainly bad actors that they don't care about for some reason, they don't care about the law. And there's a lot of good actors that just are afraid to try it as a means of expanding their business. Yet it seems like such a powerful way to reach out to people if you can target them, so you're not sending emails that's irrelevant to people that could care less.
Right. And that's where you have to have a marketer that understands and manages this kind of stuff. You have to have a marketer that knows how to opt people out, how to filter this stuff, how to maintain your database. And then I'm only talking about email, but let's say you don't want to touch email. It's too scary for you. Okay, great. You get data, you have phone numbers in there, you have physical addresses, you can run multi-touch campaigns. You can take the emails, put them into Facebook. Facebook will do a match to their data, and you could do targeted ad campaigns in Facebook usually they get about a 50% hit rate matching just for display ads to a specific targeted purchase list. So some people just say, okay, here's the list. I'm going to chop it up and give it to my sales team, and they're going to cold call these, or my SDRs, and they're going to cold call them. I always recommend to people, hey, run a cold email campaign first. Then whatever it is, a content campaign, that's all you're doing. You're just seeing who is actually alive and interested potentially in this general area. And then in your multi-touch, now you take your SDRs, your sales development reps, your business development reps, they're doing all the cold calling, and you don't just give them the whole list and say, cold call all these. You give them the people who clicked through to your blog, maybe it was on a specific topic. Those people are real, those people are more responsive. You remove the people who tell you to go F yourself, because you don't want your people to waste time approaching people who don't want to be approached. So you kind of use the email as an intent data filter, almost saying, here's the people we want to start with reaching out to that are probably the most responsive and interested. And then you work down from there to here's the people who opened, and then you never call the people whose emails bounced because they're probably not at the company, and it helps you be more efficient. And then when you go to send physical mailers, you have to decide, okay, what's the threshold here for physical mail? Are we going to send it to everybody the email was deliverable to, or are we just going to send it to people that are SDRs, have a touch with? And you can manage your campaigns from cold data that way. And now you have this whole area within your company that if you didn't have information before, purchased information, there's this massive audience out there that you have no exposure to outside of Google Ads or something. You can proactively outbound marketing approach these people.
Hey, pardon the interruption. It'll just be a beat. We want to tell you about something that's really exciting, and it might be very exciting to you if you're the owner, CEO, leader of a B2B company, roughly with $2 to $20 million in revenue, and you feel a little bit stuck. You know what I mean? Sales are a little flat, maybe even declining, challenged. Margins are being squeezed. Sales cycles seem to be lengthening, and lead flow is uncertain. We've designed a program based on over a dozen years of us doing exactly this for many B2B companies. It's called the Competitive Edge Program. And you can learn more about it at valueprop.com/edge. Tells you all about the program. It's a 90-day program, really focused on helping you sharpen your value proposition, aligning your value delivery, making sure your marketing program is doing what it has to do if you're in B2B, which is generate opportunities, and make sure your sales process is tight so that you can convert those opportunities into sales. So with that note, let's get back to an exciting episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. So, if you think about it, I'm just processing this. So let's say if I have a list of, let's say 10,000 names for the sake of round numbers, even if only 500 people even opened or clicked through on the email, and I had to send 500 mailers. Just the physical cost of sending physical media is so expensive when you do a big multiplier on it, like 10,000. It's a lot easier when you whittle it down to 200 or 300, or SDR time. I don't need to have 10 SDRs. Maybe I need 2 good ones who follow people who at least express some interest on it.
And also, once you filter, like, your SDRs will love you. They'll be like, oh, wow, I'm not getting, every other person isn't no longer with the company. You're basically scrubbing the list for them and making them more efficient. But there's all these things when people get bad information, you don't realize, one, at a foundational level, when you recognize a good data vendor, that multiplies up through the revenues in your company, because now you're getting all these people that you weren't going to get in front of before that you are, if you're doing the outbound marketing like this. But not only that, when you have bad information, it hurts your marketing and it hurts your sales. I mean, back in the day when you buy a list and then just chop it up and give it to your salespeople, if the first couple calls they made were disconnected numbers or that person's not here anymore, the salespeople just opted out of that list mentally. They're like, this list's garbage. I don't want to waste my time. I'm not going to get any commissions because I'm not going to get any sales. So even if the rest of the data was great, they just believe it's all garbage now. If you give your SDRs data and it hasn't been pre-filtered through an email campaign, it's just going to have a higher rate of inaccuracy, and they're going to be less efficient, but their morale is going to drop down and they're going to be less interested in making those calls, because now they got to make 100 calls just to talk to one person. But you give them the clicks, you give them the opens, you give them people who've actually interacted in some way, and suddenly you're going to have more effective people because they actually want to be more effective, and they're not feeling like, Glengarry Glen Ross leads are what they're getting to follow up on. You want them to know it's the good stuff.
The golden leads, right? Waiting for those. Wow. So now, and I know this question is going to be kind of like, how long is a piece of thread, right? Like, it depends. It's going to be your answer. But I like to ask, just from a best practice point of view, and I'm looking at cold emails just to start with, right? So I buy a list, or I rent a list, or I get access to a good quality list. I want to start experimenting with some basic introductory emails because I want to expand my market. Maybe I'm moving into a geography that now with Zoom, I can service the whole country. I'm not a regional business anymore, that kind of thing. And is there any kind of rule of thumb when you look at it on the length of the email, the amount of story in the email? Should it just be, hey, we have a great blog, you should check it out, or we have a great podcast, you should check it out, or here's a guide we made for whatever that, let's say I was pitching CFOs, a great guide for CFOs, a data security or something like that. It'd be interesting to, what do you see as being a really good first email, kind of just what you've seen work?
Yeah, I would say test, because the trick is there's these metrics and people say, well, it takes 11 touches for somebody to close a deal or something like that.
Right. And
the misconception there is people think that, okay, I talked to this person once, after 10 more times on average, I should close the deal. No, the first 10 touches may have gone nowhere. Like, it doesn't mean you reaching out to them 11 times is when you close the deal. Frequently it's, so you're going to send your message and you're going to say, here's the right message, right? Well, for a portion of that audience, maybe they're responsive to that message. So you have to test, because one, in your specific industry and niche and whatever it is, maybe a PDF works really well. Maybe people want white papers. Maybe they hate them and they want to attend a webinar. Maybe, and then within those people who are all, you're referring to them all as your customer, give them a persona, whatever it is. They also have, some of them like cats and some of them like dogs.
Right.
And they're going to respond to, some respond to a humor in an email and some will be turned off by it. So really what you need to do is test and do a variety. I go with the Geico method, where you don't just have one commercial and say, hey, this caveman thing's working. You say, well, some people are annoyed by it and some people love it. Let's have 10 different variations of this. And some people respond to one and some to another, because you don't need to get them interested in every email. Just send 10 and they need to be interested in one of those. That's what you're really looking to do. Don't be so offensive that they're either going to love it or they're going to report you to the officials or something like that.
Right.
But you want to test email length. I'm a huge fan of short emails. I think if you're talking to executives, keep it short. I did a post the other day saying, hey, I hope this finds you well, was the first, moving on. I don't have time for that kind of message. You're a cold email and you're going to waste my time with, I hope this finds you well. I know that I'm not interested in this and I don't have time for your, give me 2 sentences, 3 bullet points and a call to action right away. And if it's something that is relevant to me and I'm interested in, maybe I'll respond. If I see 3 paragraphs of text, I'm out. I don't have time to read a book on a cold email because you couldn't be more succinct with your messaging. Now, maybe if you're emailing librarians, they like to sit there and read long emails. I don't know. But so you just have to have a variety of stuff, find out what works for your target audience, what they're responsive to. And then even within that, have a variety of different messages. Short emails work for you. Great. Every once in a while, try a long one. See if that works. Variety of subject lines, variety of, that's marketing. You just keep testing, adjusting, and then not only sticking with what works best, because great, maybe there's one message that gets 10% of your audience, which would be a massively successful message, but you don't only want that 10, you want the next 10% too. And a different message might get 5%, but that doesn't mean you should only do the 10% message. Now you're losing out on, you can get both of them, just do, multiple messages, just again, the Geico strategy. So that would be my advice.
No, that's good. That's excellent. And it's test and tracking, right? Like you gotta also have the means to interpret what's happening so you can make some better decisions. Just shifting a little bit here, Sky, but still on the area of data. Something we've talked about before, just around privacy and just what's happened in the world today, how people should think about data, because data is not just what I might buy, but my information is somebody else's desirable piece of information, right? So I want theirs, they want mine. What's going on? So what's happening in the world of data? How should people be looking at it from a privacy, security, that kind of perspective?
Yeah, data privacy is a weird thing because we have all these different data laws, and we have, GDPR over in Europe. We have the Canadian law, we have the California law, we have CAN spam across the whole US. Some are email laws, some are general data laws. In general, my philosophy on this is capitalism needs the open ability to sell and market your product to people you don't know. And which is why we have a CAN spam law instead of a can't spam law. I don't like the word spam because that's got a negative, can email versus can't email. I feel like that was the trade-off. Like, okay, we'll say you can, but we still have to call it something negative. When they made the law, and to their credit, there was a lot of spamming going on by legitimate businesses. Even we didn't have many other options because we didn't have the data depth we have now to target better. But the data privacy thing is weird in that there's this big push, I believe, because social media. I gave a talk on this at DataCon just recently, and there's this pushback. Social media conned our information from us basically, and then monetized it. They got us to say, yes, you can have this. They got us to opt in to giving them all this information. And then they even went beyond that sometimes and took information that we gave them in confidence and made it public or used it outside of what it was implied or told they were going to use it for. So then people push back and say, oh, I have rights. My data is my data. And I say, well, okay, don't push too far. Your data is your data, but do you know your neighbor's name? Maybe some people don't, but you know what I mean? You have friends, you know their names. You're allowed to know this information. It's public information. It's out there. It's how societies work together. So sometimes there's a pushback against door-to-door salesmen, that kind of made this country in the 50s and 60s, that kind of sale. Well, then we started getting more phone stuff. We started getting emails, more efficient, basically pushing back and saying this shouldn't be allowed. Ruins capitalism. It hurts businesses' ability to, there needs to be rules. People need to follow them. CAN Spam Act, I think, does a good job of that. But ultimately, people just need to understand that they don't own their information, in the sense that when something's put out there about them, it's a society and that information is public. People are allowed to know your name. They're allowed to sell information about you, trade information about you, have information about you that's made public. But there's lines there, you can, I think this came up in my talk. Kim Kardashian put out a video that's public information. She does not have the right for that to be forgotten. I'm sorry. It's out there. Some people have it and they don't have license to it. Hulk Hogan had a video come out. That was not public information. They did not put that out. There was a lawsuit and the media company went bankrupt and doesn't exist anymore because of it. So there are lines you can cross. I'm not saying it's a anarchy with information and everything about everybody can be known by anybody and used in any way. Oh, no. There's definite rules, but people have pushed a little too far in thinking they have the right to be absolutely forgotten, that they own their information, and people shouldn't, like companies like ours, shouldn't be able to sell it. It's just not how societies work.
Right. And it just means, like, if you're in a witness protection program, don't go on social media.
Yeah. Don't post your lunch every day and talk about your old friends. You just made that public. That's your choice. You're choosing to put that out there. I walk my dog. Now my neighbors know I have a dog. I don't get to freak out and tell them, like, oh, that's not cool. You can't know I have a dog. Why are you collecting information on me? That's what we do as humans. We collect information to make better decisions. Marketers do the exact same thing. Collect information to make better decisions, ultimately trying to sell a product done the right way, trying to sell a product to the right person that's interested in the product.
Wow. Well, Sky, thank you. You've really, I think, shed a ton of light on, I think, a very essential topic for anybody who has to market anything to anybody. This is really a critical path area that they need to at least have a knowledge of, so they can actually make some smart decisions around it. If somebody listening to this podcast wanted to know more about you and your firm, if you could just call that out again so they know where to go.
My company's Mountaintop Data. You can find us at mountaintopdata.com. We have a data platform. We're one of the many data vendors out there. I'd encourage people to go to either mountaintopdata.com or Top Data Search is the name of our platform. You can get a free account there. I think I even have use like RTP 1000 has a promo code there, and you'll get 1,000 free download credits. Find me on LinkedIn if you want to connect there. You have any questions about any of this stuff? If you want to yell at me about data privacy, that's where I live on social media.
Fantastic. Sky Cassidy, thank you so much for joining us today on the Revenue Throughput Podcast.
Thanks for having me, Joe.
Hey, thanks for listening to another episode of the Revenue Throughput Podcast. If you like this episode and if you like the series, make sure you subscribe below. And also, if you liked it, please do review it. When people are looking for something exciting to listen to, especially the kind of content we're bringing, which is practical insights for B2B companies, this is a place and a free resource that they can take advantage of. Let them know about it with your review. So subscribe, review, enjoy. Thanks again.